Hello? Hello? Hmm. Yeah. So I'll just quickly start now. Just take you across the slides. So what we are going to do is a brief introduction to me and an update on the last few months of the Startup Incubation Center. Then we'll look at key learnings for entrepreneurship at SPJIMR, basically at two levels. Then we will look at what are the kind of plans that we have in place for the incubation center as well as for the alumni. And then a year-wise execution plan for what we have targeted for this year. And finally, we'll have a small chat or a discussion. So this is a brief introduction to me. I have over 25 years of experience. Basically a computer engineer from NIT Surathkal, graduated out of Bangalore in '93. Spent some time at Asian Paints, Rediff.com, followed by my own startup called Webdunia. And then spent some time in financial services, Airtel, Reliance Retail. I headed the general merchandise category between 2006 and 2009, and finally culminated in five years at the Mumbai airport, doing both the commercial and retail real estate, which is what it stands today for the existing and the new terminals. Now, quickly moving into what we have to discuss today, just wanted to briefly cover for the rest of you in terms of what is the kind of role that a startup incubator, especially in an educational institution, would look at. If there is an idea, MVP here stands for a minimum viable product, which then gets into early revenues and steady revenues, and then you get into market capturing mode. So that's the stage of the company on the x-axis. The y-axis, the business, whether it's a lifestyle, which is a small business, or a very high growth potential business. So typically incubators come in the first section, which help from an idea generation stage to a minimum viable product and finally into a steady revenue. So that is the stage that we look at in terms of helping most of our students and alumni to grow into their own entrepreneurship journeys. Quickly getting into what has been so SSPIC stands for SPJIMR Startup Incubation Center. When we started it about 10 months ago, the proposed charter at that time was to create an ecosystem to help both students and alumni in their startup journey. Help all of the students and alumni who have an innovative or a disruptive idea and want to execute it successfully, so maybe help them prepare for that. And finally, it also helps alumni who have already taken the plunge into their entrepreneurship stints and letting them take the next steps. The last piece was to help corporates and enterprises who have sort of missed the startup bus. This is more on the PGEMP kind, but this is not something that we focused on last year. Coming to the next slide. So what is it that we do at the Startup Incubation Center in SPJIMR? What we do right now is to pre-prepare before joining the incubation center. Unlike typical incubators which offer space or kind of facilities to startups, what we decided at the beginning is that we would be wanting to help our startups in the thought leadership part rather than the space and all that. So it's a virtual incubation. So I'll just spend a little more time on this slide. So the process starts with a request coming in from a student or an alumni that he or she has a great idea and would like to pursue it. Now this is open to all the courses, students as well as applicants. So after 2 or 3 idea discussions, the applicants fill out a form and sign up an MOU. And once they are with a basic presentation, they present to a panel comprising of so far we have involved a little. It has been restricted to alumni, faculty, and some domain experts in the area of that startup. Once there is an evaluation of the idea and SPJIMR or the institute feels that there is a value addition to the startup, then their addition then they are added to the incubation center. So what happens once you are part of the incubation center? There are sessions with me or the faculty which the startup intends or wants to discuss with every fortnight or every week or even monthly, depending on where the startup is based out of. We actively connect them to SPJIMR events, courses, students, alumni, as I'll explain as we go forward. So it's basically it's a mentoring and advising by faculty and domain experts based on the requirements of the startups. Of course, anytime that the startups visit the campus, they get access to most of the Wi-Fi or the library resources as they want to. It depends on how they want to access it. So basically, it is about giving the facilities of the 3 C's to our startups, which is customers, connects, and capital. So I'll just take you through a small case study of one of our first startups which was incubated. Now, Clearwiz Systems was a startup which Aditya Virmani of our PGEM 2009 was incubated. So I'll just explain how the process happens. So he had experience. He's a NIT Hamirpur graduate of 1997 and worked with GE and L&T for about 15 to 17 years. He started his own. He was very interested in this area of IoT, basically in analytics regarding manufacturing. So he started a firm in 2006, and a couple of months later, when he came to know about the incubation center informally, he requested admission into that. After a couple of meetings and discussion with most of the operations faculty, he was admitted into the startup incubation center, and the whole panel helped him arrive at a different business model. Also connected him to a few industries or SMEs. So basically, the proposition that he has is connecting more than 5 machines at an SME together, and he generates manufacturing related analytics which can be used both for diagnostics, audit, as well as improving the kind of performance of that unit. So that was the model that we arrived at. The kind of access that we gave, so there was a production and operations management conference, an international conference at SPJIMR, so we presented a paper there. He also addressed some of our FMB students who are part of the elective in production, so that he can get feedback as well as get customers from there. Also, a PGDM 1 student did a case study on that and won the second prize at an IMA competition. Finally, just about 2 months ago, he got selected as part of the NASSCOM 10,000, and today he's graduated out of the incubation center, or he's in the process of raising funds for 2.5 crores. So that is typically the way a startup would progress across the incubation center. Now, what are the other typical? So this is the data of how many startups that we have had. So on the first table we have the course wise. So it is about, just to explain the basic numbers. So 41 are the requests. 41 requests for incubation came in over the last 10 months or so. Out of which we incubated 20. 18 of them are still in the pre-preparation stage, and 3 of them have incubated and graduated. So that's a total of about 41. If you look at the PGDM 2-year MBA leads in terms of the number of requests we have got, and the newer courses like the PGP as well as development, those are the ones that are coming in as we speak now. In the areas we have both the B2B and B2C e-commerce which are dominating, but over a period of time we have a few social ventures as well as healthcare ventures coming up. Continuing into so just to give you the objective of the incubation center, which was to support startups between idea stage and minimum viable product, is something that is working. Secondly, some of the non-campus courses like Start Your Business and Grow Your Business, we automatically made them part of the incubation center and offered the services to them. So that was very effective because they are the ones who are actually wanting to start out on their own. Quickly going to the next, so the learning from the incubation center, which more from the dropouts than the success, is that most of them who did not really become part of the incubation center had a problem or they had to rework on the uniqueness of their idea. Basically, it was to do with primary and secondary research as well as looking at what is the correct market sizing. The other issue also was that the proposition was not compelling and not very well articulated, and that's the reason why they went back to the drawing board, and they have what What basically happens in this is that some of them are saying that we will go back to the drawing board, work the entire thing out, and come back again. Second, in terms of the business model, maybe the idea was too early for its time, and hence the co-founders or who had started it went back to their jobs and said that we'll revisit it later. The other very big learning was that the co-founding team sometimes runs into a problem where they don't have enough co-founders, and that is where one of the problem areas which can be identified as something that we can correct when we talk to the alumni and the students. There was also a problem where the co-founders were not able to reach out to new co-founders who are interested or working in the same area, and hopefully we would like to correct that as we go along. The last and final reason or learning was that there was always a need for a new pivot, because all of you would know that in the last 10 to 12 months the kind of progress that has happened in the startup ecosystem. By the time you arrive at a business model, you will figure out that there's someone else who has come and already done that. Moving to what we did for the PGDM course, which was a 2-year full-time MBA. So we announced an entrepreneurship cohort in the last year, which is August 2016. And what was the highlight here? So how does an e-cohort work? So I addressed the PGDM batch in the month of August and asked for students who were interested or who had an idea, who were interested in being exposed to the entrepreneurship ecosystem. What was imparted to them at that time is that if you have an idea or want to work on an idea, they submitted a form or they submitted their idea and how do they plan to scale it up. Based on all the submissions, we actually selected about 15 student teams and then guided them in preparing their plans. In fact, 3 of them could make pitches at various business plan contests. They were helped in terms of addressing all the requirements in being able to present very successfully at these venture competitions. The other advantage of an e-cohort is that you have a set of 15 student teams who are ready to take on a real life exposure to a startup as well. Now, to the alumni who are on this call, what this means is that it is not necessary that you work on your plans on your own. You can actually have the help from these student teams who are also working in the same. For example, one of our alumni had an edutech startup, which is in the animation for educational content from 4 to 6 years old. So 3 students from this e-cohort actually worked together between December 2016 and February 2017 for 3 months. They worked on his marketing plan, arrived at the pricing, arrived at the product proposition, did a little bit of market research and arrived at what is the kind of marketing plan. So this is over 3 months and finally the product was launched. Now they are working so closely with this alumnus that they are also working on his fundraise plans now. For the second round, raising funds from, it is still at a pre-series A round, so they are doing the entire market potential, the size of the market, revenue forecasting, and how they can raise money. That is one of the success. The other thing is, I'm sure most of you will be aware that we have an annual entrepreneurship event. So this year we changed the entire format. So this took place on the 7th of January 2017. We had about 23 external live startups in addition to about 7 of our institute startups and alumni startups participating. More than about 10 VCs also were in attendance, and happy to share that 4 of these startups are in active fundraise discussions, including the edutech one that I just spoke about. Now this year we have plans for this, which I will come across and share as we go along. The other success is 2 of our new ventures, student new ventures, participated in the Bangkok Business Challenge. It's the second richest, business plan contest across the world with about $60,000 up for grabs. So we had 2 teams which are operating in the imbionic space. One was an imbionic arm, which was for amputees below the elbow, and the second was in sanitation, which is about toilets in the urban areas where everyone is into the open defecation. And so how does one look at a model where the open defecation stops and the toilets become self-sustainable? So both the teams were part of the final 4 along with institutes like Cornell, Cambridge, Queensland and others. And we are happy to state that 7 out of the 16 awards were won by them, and about 25% of the prize money also was won by them. This was in February 2017. The other quick achievements are, 2 of our incubated startups raised their first round of funding. We've got a few awards, including the Women Entrepreneurship Award for one of our SYB alumnus. and the success was also to linking up students and incubated startups. Now, quickly going across to what does it mean for us? So there is a big connection between the students and the students. Yeah, so between the students we have the innovation, that is the design thinking. We have ideas from market validation to MVP. We have a very big strength that the students possess of getting into business plans, getting into robust business models. The only inhibition that is there is maybe the schedule, which all of you know is pretty tight. So the focus is on placement. So it's important to identify very sweet spots, especially from a alumni startup point of view, where you can give out projects only when they are at times when they are also free. And finally, there is a lot of social sensitivity that is there amongst the students. Amongst the new ventures, I think there is a need to complement some of the existing courses and maybe conduct some of them for alumni new ventures to help them come embrace the kind of challenges that are there in a startup. The second is that each startup that comes from into the startup incubation center has certain gaps, whether it is related to technology or whether it is the structure of the startup or the co-founding team. So in this case, I think we can have alumni and faculty both as a support mechanism. Of course, it is also there is a lot of skin in the game in new ventures because most of them have left their jobs and participate in their own startups. Finally, building on the social sensitivity part, there are quite a few of our alumni who are interested in doing their ventures in the social space. So from here, how do you want to go in the next 4 years? As I mentioned, so there are 3 plans that we have, or there are 3 prongs on which we are trying to do. So our first 1 year of experimentation with the kind of support we have succeeded in giving the kind of support to our startups. So that is what we will continue to do, which is to nurture, encourage and support both student and alumni startups. The second is we want to now move into building or imparting innovation-led entrepreneurship mindset. What this means is that the focus is no longer on generating a startup when the students are there in the institute. What is more important is, I'm sure this, if it had been done for you when you were studying, when the alumni was studying, is to impart the basics of what a startup or what a new business or what a new project which can lead to a new venture involved. So I'll be presenting a couple of courses in which we have changed some of these and trying to get this into the students right now. The third prong is for evolving SPJIMR, which is your alma mater, into a destination where we are seen as a thought leader and we are seen as a leader in having innovative or giving birth to innovative ventures, especially in the area of social entrepreneurship. So these are the three parts of our plan for the next 4 years, and this is where I will present a little more in detail of what we want to do. So the first, in terms of the enhancing the support, we are working on increasing the faculty and alumni engagement with the startups. So this year we would be embarking on a seed fund which we are encouraging our alumni to contribute. So most of you who are interested in this can look at subscribing to this alumni fund. It will be run by the alumni and there will be a board which we will eventually arrive at. This will be used only for funding of the SPJIMR student and alumni startups. Of course, the due diligence and all that will be done by the incubation center, and there will be a lot of help available. The second is the faculty in terms of sparing time, especially in the domain expertise that they have. They can also have a sort of involvement with an engagement with the startups, and also taken about sweat equity, in terms of understanding where the progress and how they can contribute. The second is for the institute to create a pipeline of new ventures. As I mentioned, e-cohort is one of the ventures which can come up. Now, just taking you further into the alumni plan. So, what do we have for alumni? Just going into the alumni. So, from the incubation center, what is the help that is available to alumni? So, we intend to start like this webinar. We would intend to start small modules. Once you are done with this webinar, maybe if I can have some feedback on what are the areas that you would like to expose us to expose you to. So it could be basically from an area where you have an idea and in the initial stages you want to develop a proof of concept and try to arrive at a minimum viable product or an offering. The second could be the kind of valuation that you would end up with and the kind of metrics that are associated with the business, so that you focus on that and end up with a successful fundraise. The last is, how do you start up India, which is announced last year with great expectations. So how do we help you navigate that? The second help is to connect to interested alumni as co-founders who are pursuing the same idea, or alumni who would like to sponsor, or they are interested in funding you as well, as also who are good connections which are there in both seed and VC funds within SPJIMR alumni and outside. So we will be able to connect you to raise the first or the fresh round of funds. Finally, I would also invite alumni to be part of the mentoring panel for supporting the startups. The second is, how does the Startup Incubation Center seek support from the alumni? What do we expect? As I mentioned earlier, we are trying to start a fund at SPJIMR, which will be mostly like a crowdfunding platform. We will announce it to all alumni through the webinar, which is today, as well as we'll send out detailed circulars to those who are not able to participate here. This year we have the 1992 and 2002 batch who are coming for their 25 years and 15 years reunion. So we will also be working in detail with them. So those of you who are coming in, maybe we can have a detailed discussion right now itself and then get into December. The other thing is, alumni can indirectly support or sponsor this by even spending time or helping them connect. As I mentioned, the 3 C's, which are connect, capital, and customer. So maybe you can be a customer, or you can connect them to probable customers. That's how a startup needs help in the beginning. Finally, if there are any angel investing funds or angel investors that the alumni is aware of, maybe it can be a good way of connecting to them. So that is summarizing the SPJIMR alumni involvement. Coming back to the other involvement that can happen is that we are trying to ensure that all the campus programs by year 2 are covered by this entrepreneurship initiative. Just moving on to the second prong, which is so what do we the other help that we need from alumni is to connect into the innovation funds. See, most of the corporates are launching their own funds. Capgemini, who has applied innovation exchange, which is based on technology for overseas clients only. Axis Bank has launched their innovation lab. Cisco is similar, mostly in the go-to-market cases. Society General has launched their accelerator for fintech startups. State Bank of India, and the works. So if there are any of these funds in which you are very well connected, we would welcome the help that is available. In terms of PGDM, the interest to show you this slide is that there is a lot of opportunities for the students to engage with startups in the incubation center, their own startups, as well as alumni who have their startups there. So this year again we will be announcing the PGDM. So there are 15 teams who can participate in most of the startup related projects in short spurts. There is also a course of independent study that will be announced for the second year PGDM students, where they can spend 60 hours on their own startup or the area that they desire to work on with any other incubated startup or otherwise outside the institute as well. We are offering new courses, and I will take you through a small course that we have already started. And finally, we are also looking at a sweet spot which is identified for the PGDM students when they get placed in December. So January to May, before they join their jobs, as I mentioned, they can get exposed to an entrepreneurial mindset during these 5 months. In fact, we started with 2 or 3 students this year, and their experience has been very good, where they work with designated startups either in the incubation center or outside, and they can have a better learning or exposure to a startup in a very surrogate manner, but which would help them when they eventually embark on their plans a few years later. Similarly, we have plans for GMP. Some of the alumni who are from the GMP, we already started a course called Startup Garage. It started on June 20th. With some help from our alumni, we are ensuring that we have the best ideas that come up go into an entrepreneurship event focused only on the GMP, which will be done in December 2017, before they graduate and go into the 6 months for the international institute that they plan for. So we've got 3 institutes that they've graduated to, one in France, one in Germany, and one in Amsterdam. So there also they could continue that work in international incubators and accelerators. So that's a plan for GMP. Similarly for PGPM, we have 2 student teams being incubated currently. One working in the livestock area in terms of healthcare, another working in a rural area for a social venture. So we are when the new batch joins in December 2017, we would be doing it. For the existing batch, we already have courses and they are already being incubated. But for the next batch, we will announce the e-cohort. And finally, we would like also the PGPM alumni to take part after they graduate into the SPJIMR annual event. So that was about extending support of the Startup Incubation Center to the existing startups. The second one is how do we get into an entrepreneurial mindset in our students. So typically it would be in terms of changing or modifying the current curriculum. So design thinking is a course which is there across formats now. So this year we are having a design thinking course for PGDM, which would be presenting to a live Shark Tank kind of environment. So we will be doing this in September or October along with the course. The second is in the knowledge, skills and attitudes area, we would add more and more courses which are both knowledge and skills based. So what are the kind of startup skills needed? For example, a very practical skill of how does one sign a term sheet? How does one raise funds? Those are the kind of very, very practical skills that someone would need before they embark on their own startup. The other thing is maybe learning from others. We are trying to actively collaborate with international institutions like the Tel Aviv University, Babson, LEDMAC. And so if any of you have any contacts amongst these institutes or otherwise, more than welcome to share with me. So I'll just give you an example of what do you mean by energizing current curriculum. So for example, a new course that has been started is something on a startup garage. What does it imply? What it implies is from the name itself, it's a more of a diagnostic approach to learning about new businesses or startups. For example, if you diagnose saying that the startup is not generating revenues as per a particular business plan, why that is not generating revenues? So the possible problem is that the consumer behavior or the change in consumer behavior is so far and wide that the product or the product is inadequate to ensure that the consumer behavior changes from where it is right now to where it is needed. The second reason could be why is the venture not profitable? Maybe because the pricing is not right, and hence you're leaving money on the table, and whereas the consumer is ready to pay for the value added by the product or service. So what essentially happens in this course is students go very deep into their own business plan and check out what it doesn't address, what are the gaps that are there, and hence link it to maybe the single most reasons why most startups fail is that they don't get enough funding at the time that they need it. So this is one course which we already started with the GMP, and we'll extend this to the PGDM in the due course of time, and PGPM as well. The other planned courses are as startups face in a very short time, they have to have a viral marketing approach where they change consumer behavior really rapidly to adopt to their products. So that is another thing that is planned. Also putting together all the building blocks that everyone students have learned in the 2 years here. Maybe the requirement could be of a single course which fits everything together, the marketing, the financial, the operations and the technology side as well. So that's another course that is being planned. Finally, even if students join consulting or corporates, I think there is also a general management perspective that needs to be given, which is more to handle new projects and how do these students react and perform on that. So this gives you a flavor of the kind of new courses that we are planning, which are more oriented towards generating or imparting the entrepreneurial mindset. The third prong, as I mentioned, after the startup incubation support, then the second was the entrepreneurship mindset, and the third was being a destination for innovative ventures, especially social ventures. So in this, developing SPJIMR as a location or as a destination for most of the innovation in startup or entrepreneurship activities, here we have 3 plans. One is to develop on our strengths, which is our entire social sensitivity, which involves WDA, POCC. So we're looking at a lot of partnerships here, and I'll explain in a minute on what we mean by partnerships. But it's more of a social platform that we would like to generate, where anyone who's interested in pursuing for-profit as well as a non-profit, not-for-profit social venture can be supported from our incubation center. The second is to rebrand our annual entrepreneurship event, which we call Lock, Stock and Trade, and convert it into a more premier event with a Shark Tank kind of an annual realistic exercise over a period of the next 2 or 3 years. The last is, I think there is a requirement, and maybe we have not done it so far, of engaging corporates and government in some of the applied research. We expect the incubation center as well as our entrepreneurship team here to imbibe so much from the startups that we have incubated and help that we can become a place where government and everyone associated can be supported as well. Now I'll just quickly describe the kind of social ventures that we are planning. So we have a DOCC where we have initiatives to promote new ventures. We provide business model support. So if there is an interesting business model, so we have selected 4 projects from the last year's DOCC, which is Development of Corporate Citizenship, and we plan to support those initiatives with taking them further into their entire business model and raising funds. We are associated with Maastricht, the German United Nations University into sanitation, and 2 other such discussions where they will be actively collaborating in ensuring that some of the social ventures that are part of the incubation center get the required support. Finally, we are a knowledge partner to the Swachh Maharashtra Grand Challenge, which is the Maharashtra CM's initiative. So we will be participating in panels as well as outreach, where each social initiative can receive, which get finalized, can receive about 2 to 4 crores of funding, and also encourage them to get support from the Maharashtra government in most of the waste management, the water supply, toilets and sanitation, and these initiatives. So that was the social venture plan for the next year. So across the 4 years, we just want to summarize because there are so many things that we are talking about. So in the year 1, which is a very focused activity, would be only to get an increased alumni and faculty engagement into the incubation center, both as incubees as well as supporting the incubation center. The second is focus on design thinking and innovation, especially the beginning to begin with, and see how that can develop into at least a couple of ventures that can come out of that as it. And the lastly is to structure our startup event, which happens in January 2018, and see how we can expand the entire SPJIMR footprint. So it is scheduled for 13 January 2018, and we would expect a lot of participation and support from all of you. The other initiatives would also be, getting to know the innovation initiatives like the Tata or TCS, trying to work with some of those innovation-led organizations to ensure that we become a business partner to them. So this is the year 1, and similarly, some of the initiatives that I mentioned earlier are programmed for the next few years, and some of the other plans which are we have a postgraduate management program for women, which is also started now. So we see great potential in some of them who are going back to work after having a break in their career. We see a lot of potential in their addressing startups as well. We are trying to collaborate with technology schools. As I mentioned, one of the important gaps is for an alumni or a startup in our incubation center is the management or the marketing or the business plan ready, but if there is a technology enabling role, so we would need someone to provide the technology. The other thing is in terms of infrastructure, currently we are arranging some kind of space or some kind of working space, because a few of the startups would require them at the beginning. But this is work in process, and maybe it's a little bit of time before we can get some of these things done. So these are the final plans that I had to share with you. Though we are ahead of time, I've just kept about 15 minutes for discussion. So in case there are any questions we can have on the Q&A, and I'll be more than happy to answer some of the questions. Does anyone have any questions? Just want to also mention that there are quite a few of our own alumni who are part of funding organizations, and we are trying to reach out to them and see if that can be a support mechanism that can be built for you. So that is another help that we can have going.